The scene opens with a Sama tableau. Wolverine, looking weary and wounded, is being held by a woman with long, dark hair. Both of them are deeply saddened. Behind them, Storm stands tall, her white hair stark against the dramatic sky. The air crackles with energy as lightning flares behind them. Wolverine's claws are extended and blood drips from his hands, a stark reminder of the violence he has endured. Storm's hands are clasped in front of her, the weight of the moment heavy on her shoulders. The atmosphere is tense, full of grief and power as the three stand against the backdrop of the stormy sky. The scene shifts to San Francisco, months earlier. We see a comic book panel showing a villain called Nazi Frankenstein. A woman with bluish hair is speaking while looking at the panel in disbelief, expressing skepticism about its ridiculous premise. Next, the scene changes to a woman standing by a large window overlooking the Golden Gate Bridge, looking thoughtful. She continues to express her amusement at the comic book, joking with Wolverine, who's holding a mug with a funny face drawn on it, that Captain America, whose comic is the one being displayed, couldn't be this cheesy. Then, Wolverine and the woman share a close moment. He speaks to her about how some stories just cannot convey what a person's entire life is about, and she finishes his thought, adding that the only thing that makes a story worth telling is how it is made. The two are very close, their faces almost touching, their expressions conveying deep emotion. The scene is tinged with a soft blue hue. The scene shifts to New York City today. Melita Garner, the woman with long dark hair, is walking through a crowded street, seemingly looking for someone. A young boy wearing a Wolverine mask and an orange X-Men t-shirt walks by her, looking annoyed as the noise is making him feel discomfort. He's surrounded by a group of people dressed in silly green costumes. Suddenly, the boy calls out to her, confirming that she is Melita Garner, and asks who's asking for her. Melita, a bit taken aback, responds asking what he's doing here, remarking how jaded he seems for being in New York. He explains that he's waiting, mentioning Peter Parker had a message for her, and another person in a costume yells that the doppelgangers are wigging him out. Melita then touches her hair and looks annoyed by it all. The scene opens with Spider-Man swinging through the city, holding Melita in his arms. She looks distressed, and in mid-air, she confirms that Peter said she needed help. She's wearing a tank top and loose pants, and one of her slippers has fallen off. The scene changes to Spider-Man holding her close as they're still in the air. She explains she needs his help taking photos for her book on Wolverine, not fighting Dr. Sharktopus or any other crazy villain. Spider-Man is not really okay with being hired for this type of work. They then land on a rooftop, and while Spider-Man is facing her, he mentions that it's been a while since they've spoken. She replies that they're just He asks if that is the reason she got his message, because of what they are. She then dismisses him by calling him Webster and says that he is overqualified for this work, ending the conversation. The scene continues on the rooftop, where Melita responds to Spider-Man's comments. She says she left a very emotional, very slurred message, and that she will never drink with the Bamps again. She explains she wants to write a book about Logan, and it feels wrong. Spider-Man, with a hand on his head, expresses his surprise that the X-Men do not open their doors to journalists, even to Logan's exes. He then says she'd rather climb off the roof than look him in the eye. Melita turns away from Spider-Man, saying, "So what could be wrong with me and the X-Men?" The scene changes to a close-up of her face, where she says that Logan was right. He used to say that if they ever met, he'd understand why he wanted to cut her tongue out. Spider-Man responds that that is graphic and asks what she means with was and wanted. Melita replies by asking if he's not dating anymore. Spider-Man ends the conversation by asking what's wrong with Logan. The scene continues on the rooftop. Melita is now looking away, appearing concerned. Spider-Man is facing away from her, looking at the city. The scene shifts to a full-body shot of Spider-Man and Melita hugging tightly. Her head is rested on his chest. Finally, the scene changes to a close-up of Spider-Man's face, where, addressing her with affection, he asks, "You get beat up a lot in school, Spidey." The scene switches to an action-packed sequence. Spider-Man, along with Wolverine, is fighting against an army of green robots. They're in a large, ornate room, and Spider-Man asks if Wolverine ever fights back. Wolverine, while punching a robot's head off, responds that he always does. Spider-Man jokes that he's a total wuss because he went swimming in a t-shirt, and Wolverine reacts to it annoyed. Wolverine then continues to fight, while Spider-Man dodges attacks. The scene then changes to a view from above, where the two heroes are standing among the defeated robots. Spider-Man wonders what they'd make of them doing this, and he says that his aunt and uncle always said violence never solved anything. Wolverine replies that he guesses they would not want him to do nothing. Spider-Man concludes by repeating his uncle's mantra, "With great power comes great responsibility." The scene continues in the ornate room, where Wolverine is telling Spider-Man that he's reopening the old Xavier campus and starting a school. Spider-Man, while grabbing a broken helmet, replies asking if he thinks that's a bad idea. Wolverine affirms that there are worse ideas. Spider-Man, mid-action, expresses concern that he is not setting the best example for the kids. Wolverine continues to fight and says that he has certainly failed a lot in his life, but most of the time it was because he left it to someone else. The scene then closes with a close-up of Spider-Man, who says, "Or worse, I just didn't try." The scene opens with a character with a mustache and a fiery background, saying, "We now return to Dupe Hard," closed captioned for the Dupe impaired. He's holding a device that seems to be a toy rocket, and he yells at another green frog-like character to stick his lips out and asks for a kiss. The green frog-like character replies while holding what seems to be a camera. The scene then shifts to later, where the same frog-like character is on a TV screen. The camera moves to show an empty swimming pool full of characters from different species, all with different outfits and colors. Some are in the pool and others are lying down on the sides of the pool, and it looks like they are all either drunk or passed out and surrounded by red cups and empty bottles. One character is wearing a turtle-shaped floaty, and there's even a little yellow rubber duck floating in the water. All of them are staring at the TV screen, and a message with a strange lettering is in the air. The scene opens with a character sitting on a red chair with a purple tracksuit and yellow glasses, looking at the side. He says, I guess we missed the party. Yeesh. Then, the scene changes as Melita and Spider-Man enter a room. Melita introduces herself as Melita Garner, asking if the man is Quentin Quire, and Quentin replies that he knows who she is and what she's there to do, but she's too late. He then continues to eat whatever he's holding and says, "Face it, nobody cares." Melita replies asking if nobody is supposed to mean him, and if that's why he is acting like someone tore his blankie. He replies that if she knew him, she'd be as tired of him as the rest of them. He says that his only use was to murder fools, and it has been a long time since he did anything cool. He ends his monologue by saying that Logan was always whining and up in everyone's business. The scene continues with Melita getting close to Quentin, grabbing him by his tracksuit and saying, "You listen to me, you little snot. Say one more bad word about that man." Spider-Man intervenes by saying, "Melita, please, he's just a kid." Quentin responds that he is an ungrateful little dirtbag, that Logan gave him a home and treated him like family. The scene then shifts to Quentin's perspective, looking at a TV screen where the frog-like character from the last scene is. Quentin says, "Heh, yeah, some home and dupe or dupe not, there is no die." In the next panel, he's looking at Melita and Spider-Man and he says, "You know what the rest of the world sees when they look at that nut house? A weapons factory." He then says that they just never did anything because they were scared, but now it's a matter of time. He finishes by stating that they can all thank good old headmaster Logan for rounding them all up. The scene opens with a close-up of Quentin's face as his glasses are being pulled by Spider-Man. He responds, "Yee, that's about enough of that," implying that he is annoyed by Spider-Man. The scene then changes to Spider-Man arguing with Quentin, telling him that he's supposed to be a genius, but all he does is talk. He says he knows it's not his place to tell him how to feel or what to do, but he's used his fists most of the time he should have used his brain. The scene then changes back to Quentin, who replies, "You had a problem with Logan. Fine. But what makes you so much better? Say what you want about him, but he never passed the buck, buddy. The scene ends with a wide shot of Quentin, Spider-Man, and Melita, where Spider-Man adds, "Never sat on his hands and let the people he cared about take the hit for him." The scene continues with Quentin making fun of Spider-Man, saying he struts in here like a cowboy, that all the trust Logan told him was that he was a good kid deep down. He finishes by saying that he's hilarious. Then he adds, "Yeah, maybe that's it, or maybe he just knows how boring he really is." Spider-Man grabs his camera and takes a picture as Melita is looking annoyed. Spider-Man, still with the camera in hand, tells Quentin that he should spend some of that money at the barbershop. Melita finishes by stating that they are done and leaves, telling Quentin that they'll see him around. The scene ends with Quentin, now looking annoyed, saying, "Budget over design review, and you say that every time, son." He finishes by saying, "Not if I see you first, Spider-Man." The scene changes with Spider-Man swinging through the city, carrying Melita, and asking if she's okay. They are flying past a dupe and he says, "Tell me you're not worried about what that little jerk said?" She responds that she knows he's wrong, and that what worries her are the people that'll think he's right. She then adds, "I know the X-Men, Melita, but more than that, I know what it's like to be misunderstood, to be feared and hated just because you're different." The scene changes again, showing them running down a staircase where she says that if she can figure it out, she knows they can too. The scene then shifts to Melita standing in the rain, where Spider-Man is now seen swinging away, as she says, crying, "I hope you haven't been avoiding me, Melita." The scene opens with Storm in a rainstorm, her hands extended as she says, "We have so much to share." The scene then changes to a close-up of Melita who, looking defeated, tells Storm that she wasn't ready, that she didn't know how to face all of this. A translucent, ethereal form of Storm appears beside them. She responds that it hasn't always been like this, that there was a time when she lost her gifts. She adds that when she had only her wits and her will to guide her, and when she was forced to face things honestly. In another shot, Melita apologizes, saying that she forgets sometimes. Storm says that it's okay, that it's who she is. Then she says that when it first happened, most of the others pretended that nothing was wrong, and that things hadn't changed. She asks if she knows what Logan did, then she adds that he took her to Japan. The scene shifts to a brightly colored, pixelated view of Japan. We see a close-up of Storm with her white hair and Wolverine behind her, with a Japanese sign that reads "Local Shinjuku" in the background. Then, the scene changes to different points of view of their journey, including a view from behind, where they're walking on a narrow street and the backs of their legs are highlighted. The narration says, "Wherever Wolverine went in Japan, he was followed by the hand." We then see 4 pairs of glowing eyes, before the scene changes again to show a close-up of Storm talking to Wolverine. And in the next panel, we see the profile of a man's face and the words "sniff" in the air. The scene continues in a brightly colored, pixelated view of Japan, with ninjas attacking from all directions and rooftops. We see the word "sniff" in the air, then we see Storm and Wolverine fighting side by side, surrounded by ninjas. The scene shifts to a close-up of Wolverine screaming as he's being hit by arrows and throwing stars, with the word "TZZZKK" in the air. Then, another shot of Wolverine, this time with a hole in his chest and throwing stars surrounding him, and the word "Hear it" in the air, then the word "snort" above him. Finally, we see the body of a ninja laying down on the floor with a small glimpse of Wolverine's shoes as ninjas continue to surround him. The scene continues with the same brightly colored, pixelated view of Japan, where the ninjas are being defeated by Storm, who is fighting with a 3-pronged weapon. The word "talk" is in the air, with a Japanese character above it that seems to be the word for break. Then we see a shot of a dead ninja falling into a pool of water with a ripple effect. The scene changes again to a close-up of the face of a ninja being stabbed and a person being held by another in the background. Then we see a shot of someone's boots standing in the water with a sword in front of them, and in the background, we see a silhouette standing in front of green lightning. Finally, the scene ends with Storm and Wolverine standing, both looking exhausted. The scene returns to the rainy night, where Storm is talking with Melita, saying everyone in my life had always tried to prop me up or hold me down. But on that day, Logan was the first one to do something no one else had the guts to. She finishes by saying that he trusted her. She says he trusted her, Melita, alone, to hold so much of his life in her hands, that with this book, she's seeking to show them a Logan they never had the courage or wisdom to see. Storm adds that it's a kindness they will never be able to repay. She continues by saying that this book's power lies not in that it's his story, but it's not just his story, it's ours. The scene shifts as Storm holds Melita's face in her hands, and the scene ends with a view of Melita sitting by a window overlooking a city skyline, where the text states, "It is your own." The scene shifts to the Savage Land, with the word epilogue at the top. It opens with a panel showing a dinosaur with its mouth wide open, revealing sharp teeth. The scene then changes to show 3 smaller, feathered dinosaurs. Then we see Quentin Quire with his purple suit sitting on a chair that has the words "old fart" on it, with a helicopter behind him. He says, "So you wanted to teach me a lesson, is that it? And to get me back in the game." He finishes by saying, "Well, old man, you play one hell of a long game." The final scene opens with a close-up of Quentin Quire's face as he's lying down, stating, "They won't give up where your body really is. They're afraid someone might do something stupid, like try to resurrect you." The scene changes to a close-up of his eyes, where a tear is falling, and he adds, "That's okay. I don't want to know. I'd be tempted to go there every day and spit on it before my morning coffee. Ruin my whole schedule." The scene shifts again, where Quentin is standing up with his hand on his head, stating, "So this place'll do. Damned madhouse full of stuff too stupid and stubborn to know its time has passed. Don't worry about this rocking chair being eaten or rotting or whatever. Cost me a fortune, but I made sure it's as hard as your head. It'll keep." The scene ends with a view of Quentin walking away from the chair towards a helicopter and a sign that says "Old Fart Logan," as he says, "Hope I still get to put you in it one day." Thanks for tuning in. Stay curious, stay awesome, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more amazing content.